Hi, Adil. First of all, thank you so much for taking your time out on the weekend um, and speaking to us all the way from Toronto. To discuss this entire career transformation and your entire experience, MBA experience at Rotman School of Business at the University of Toronto. So thank you so much. We are looking to have a conversation with you just as to your pre-MBA experience, your MBA experience, and your post-MBA experience. So yeah, so I think we'll go straight into our conversation, and the one thing that stands out when someone sees your profile is that you've been a cricketer in India,
Yeah.
not having had, having played at the county level, having played at the state level in India as well, and not having much of a corporate, so to speak, experience. What was your entire thought process behind doing an MBA? And if you can give us a slight brief about your pre-MBA education and profile.
Sure thing. Thanks, Dave. Life was a bit different for me than my friends. I'm sure that other people who followed a similar career path would kind of experience this the same thing. It was very focused. A single-minded determination to kind of focus on a career in sports, which meant that social life and the normal things that people did were always on the back burner.
Right.
So for the first 23 years of my life, it was all about cricket. Even studies came in second. And all my decisions that I took in my life from an academic standpoint were also driven by my career in cricket. Now,
Okay.
I feel that I had a lot of learnings for my career in cricket, and it kind of put me in good stead as I moved on and transitioned into my so-called corporate life in sports management. I think one thing I did know when I moved on from cricket was that I wanted to continue my life in sports, be it on the management side of things. So the second I moved on from playing professional cricket, I got into sports management. My first initiative within this was with Atletico de Kolkata and the Indian Super League in their first season. So it was more into team and venue operations. Moving from that, I got into talent management and sports marketing. But saying that, and mind you, I loved the work that I did within sports management. I always felt that I had the potential of doing much more than this. And I probably needed a platform to give me that opportunity. So when you ask me why I thought the MBA was important for me, considering my profile and my background, I needed a way to get back on track. Think about it this way. I started my first corporate job when I was 23 years old, right? Many others in my shoes would have started right after school, right after college when they were 20, 21. So I was already behind them by 2 years. So I needed to find a way to get myself back on track, and I felt an MBA would be the best way to do that. Secondly, as I mentioned, studies was always secondary, or secondary in my priorities. So I don't think I got the maximum out of my schooling and my academics, both in high school and during my undergrad. So I felt that an MBA would get me back on track from that aspect as well, just to kind of go through certain concepts that were required for someone to propel in a career in the corporate world, right? And thirdly, I always wanted to kind of step out of my comfort zone. Like I felt like I never wanted to be in a situation that I felt comfortable in my life. I wanted to move forward as and when things became easy. I think I got that from my career playing cricket. So one aspect of this was that I did want to work internationally. I was seeing prospects. I was seeing the MBA as an opportunity, kind of make me achieve that objective of mine as well. So these are certain aspects that I looked at, and I felt that a master's would be an appropriate decision for me. Now I had to kind of make a choice between whether I should go for a general MBA or a specialized master's in sports, because that was the field I was interested in. I think
Correct.
that decision became clear when I realized that the skill sets that one gets from a master's or from an MBA can be applicable to any scenario, right? And I felt that I should not be narrowing my focus only on sports, whereas with an MBA, I can get the skill sets on a more broader level and then apply it to whichever industry I wanted to get into. In this situation, I wanted to get in the sports industry. All I had to do was just use that skill set and apply it to the industry of my choice.
Sure, that's very interesting. I mean, I by no means I think is your cricketing experience, like you said, it helped you get back on track. I actually feel that sports is sports at the competitive level that you were playing is like any other corporate career that you're trying to pursue, because I mean, the higher you go, the harder it gets, right? And I think team sports, apart from individual sports, does add a lot of
Mm.
corporate sort
Mm.
of
Right.
environment, except that it's a sporting environment. So I
Yeah.
think I'm a big fan of sports. I played sports all my life. I've done mainly tennis, but
Right.
just sport teaches you so much more. I feel at times, rather than just working your entire like working in a corporate setup. So having said that, you said you most of your life you played sports. So when you were doing your MBA application,
Mhm.
uh, I'm sure it was very difficult for you to, kind of put in sales figures and, you grew the company from this level to this level, or your team, you know,
Mhm.
you, so you weren't maybe able to put corporate values there. So can you talk us through a little bit about how you built your profile and how you projected your application?
Mhm. For sure. So, having a career in sports, I feel, in my opinion, again, this is just my opinion here. I feel like I learned much more than I learned in whatever small corporate experience that I
I
had.
agree.
For
I
sure,
agree.
and like you said, team sports is a completely different ball game. There's so many other factors that kind of come into play when it is a team sport. There's so many aspects that you gain from playing team sports. So to say that I had diverse experiences and great experiences through my sports is still an understatement, to be honest, because there was so much that I learned from my life in sports that
Correct.
I'm pretty sure that I will not get in a career in the corporate world. Yes,
Absolutely.
you're right in the fact that I didn't have any sales figures and big results to talk about, where the numbers were
Yeah.
in millions. But at the same time, I think it's important to take a story from experience, and it's important to know how to sell it, right? Like it's important to know how to kind of ensure that the person reading your application or the interview that you're talking to and sharing a story with understands what you've gained out of that experience, right? They want to understand that. I mean, results is one thing, sure, but have you been able to tell them what your role was within that experience? Have you been able to tell them what are the key themes that you took away from a certain experience, right? How have you been able to apply those experiences in other scenarios, right? How can you
Yeah.
apply those experiences within the MBA or post, the MBA world? I think that's what MBA recruiters want to know, right? So
Right.
even if you do have experience in areas that are not within the corporate sphere, it's all
Yeah.
about kind of diving deeper into those stories and getting the essence out of that so that your recruiters understand your learnings from those experiences. Right? It's not always about the figures.
Correct. No, I think so. That I mean, that's the other question that I want to ask. The follow-up question to this was, I'm sure during your 2 years at Rotman, there must have been very many situations in which you've been able to contribute very in a very different way to class perspective, or to any discussion. So can you shed some light upon that as to how some of your classmates, kind of their corporate experience and their thinking process was not, it was definitely not wrong, but very different from how you perceive things and how you projected things. So how did that diversity add value to your classroom, if something you can.
Right. Right. So I think one thing that we need to kind of keep in mind when someone goes for an MBA, someone gets selected for an MBA, especially in a good business school, is everyone believes that they are rock stars in their own right, that they have reached a certain situation because they've achieved something in life, right? Unfortunately, what happens in that scenario is that people come with a certain mindset and attitude that may not be the best for their own development during an MBA. I think humility and the pursuit to learn, constantly learn, is very important during the MBA, because the people you're with have done brilliant things in life and they have had experiences that you wouldn't even have dreamt of, right? So for your own development, it's so important to understand people's experiences and their backgrounds, always be in a state of constant learning, pick up as fast as
Yeah.
possible the insights that they shared so that you can kind of gain as much as possible. Keeping that in mind, obviously, it was a bit of a challenging scenario to start off with, especially during my first year, because most of the courses were, on the harder skills per se, right? So I think it was a good learning experience for me in the sense that, okay, maybe I did not have as much participation as I would have wanted, but at the same time, I was gaining so much from my peers and their experiences. And I think that's the important aspect of the MBA. You just need to have to kind of adjust in certain scenarios. The tables completely changed in the second year when we were focusing more on the softer skills, where I could add much more value. And I hope that my peers learn from my learnings as well, right? So keeping that in mind, the MBA, both years of the MBA, you have to kind of just keep on adjusting and kind of changing your mindset accordingly and trying to make the most of it. And I felt that as someone with someone with the lack of corporate experience, I felt that that was the best way for me to gain that experience while I was at Rotman.
No, I totally agree with you, because when I did my MBA, one of the most important learning was like to have a wide and endless horizon. Like there's so much to learn from people all over the class. Like I remember when I was operations was a new course to me, right? And I thought operations is put a button on, the factory will start, your goods are made, and that's the end of it, right? But that was a huge eye opener. And then we had a case study in the class where it was, I think, related to one of the Indian companies. I think it was ITC or something. And that's when my involvement in the class got a lot more, because I was able to add that whole India perspective.
Right.
So I can totally, relate to what you're saying, that, it's a new learning experience for everyone. Having said that, I think when you were applying, as far as I know and remember, is that you were accepted and had admission to Oxford, and where I am also an alum. So I'm really intrigued to find out as to what really led you to Rotman over. I mean, what was your decision-making process or thought process to pick Rotman over Oxford? Not to undermine Rotman by any means. I think it's a great business school, but I just want to. Yeah, it's slightly personal also.
No, I completely get it. And all due respect, Oxford is a brilliant school. It was a dream when I did get, and it was more like a dream coming true when I did get into Oxford, and I made my decision very hard, probably as hard as they get for me. Especially I think one that kind of relates to it was my decision to move on from playing cricket. Right, I think that was one of the harder decisions of my life. I think this was pretty close. It was a pretty close second. I felt like, having got into Rotman, my life was sorted. Like, okay, I knew my direction, but the second that Oxford confirmation came in, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a very tough decision for me. So I think I had to be realistic in the situation here, right? Like I went back to the drawing board and I asked myself, right, what were your objectives when you applied for your MBA? What did you want to do? What did you want out of the MBA? So for me, there were certain things, one of which being that I did want to work internationally. I wanted to step out of my comfort zone, right? I didn't want to do an MBA and then just come back to India and get a slight salary bump, because I knew that I wanted to stick to the same industry. So I looked at all the options. At that moment, the job environment in both the countries were favoring Canada more than the UK. So that was one aspect. The second was that having had, let's say, a less than average academic life because of my cricket, I felt like I needed 2 years during the MBA to get as much as possible from it as compared to one.
Fair
And
enough.
even though I applied to Oxford for certain reasons, I felt that maybe the 2 year course would be better for me than the 1 year course, right? Mind you, like we're kind of comparing two business schools here, one of which has a global brand and the other which has a country specific brand. Taking nothing away from
Yeah.
Rotman, it is the best, if not
Yeah.
one of the best business schools in Canada. But I had to think long. I had to think in the long run. Maybe Oxford would have been better for me on my resume in the short term, but in the end, I felt that if I wanted career progression the way I saw it, it would come from Rotman, which is why in the end I did decide to go to Rotman instead of Oxford. The mistake I probably made, I don't regret it, kind of coming up straight here, but I felt that when I was going for my MBA, I had a very narrow mind frame. I was so focused on the sports industry because that's all I wanted to do all my life, that I didn't think of the other opportunities that could have come through. So when I had this decision, I did make sure that I reached out to people at both business schools, not only in a general perspective, uh, but candidates who also wanted to get into the sports industry. And when I had conversations with those candidates from Oxford, all of them were back in India, right?
Yeah.
And they were looking for jobs in India. So it kind of gave me a bit of perspective as to what my future could look like had should I have gone to Oxford. And I felt like I have a better chance of getting a job in the industry in Canada than I would have had in Oxford. Saying that, I think it's also very important to point out that one should not be as narrow focused in what they want to do and be open minded to the kind of opportunities that an MBA has to offer, because they do, an MBA does, right? And they can be in complementary
Yeah.
industries. I think one thing that from my own example, is that although I went in to get into the sports industry, I ended up in the gaming and entertainment industry, right? Which is complementary to the sports industry, but it only opened up for me when I realized that there's so many other industries out there that I could use my skill sets and my experience in, right? One point being sports betting, right? I mean, because I have knowledge, extensive knowledge about sports in general, I could use that in this experience. So I feel like when one decides which business school they want to go to, I think it's very important for them to not be very narrow focused and look at the broader picture when they're deciding their business school.
So, it's interesting that you say that because, first of all, um, we we think that we crossed the biggest hurdle when we got a decent GMAT score and applied, right? That's what that was the impression that I was under. And then you're always undermining yourself. Ki, yeah, I know I'm going to get into these couple of schools, but these two are long shots. So same thing happened for me. Like Oxford was slightly far away from me, but I knew it was reachable. But when I applied to ISB, I knew my chances in ISB were much higher than Oxford. And I was like, when I got both admits, I was like, holy shit, what do I do, man? Like, I was confused. And I was like, well, the GMAT was nothing compared to the decision that I have to make right now.
No,
you know?
yeah, I get that. I completely get that. I mean, I had a couple of decisions I had to make. I mean, I had another one where I got into Cass Business School and I got the Chevening scholarship, so it was technically a free MBA, right? The only caveat in this situation was I had to come back to India for 2 years. So although I just tried my luck with the Chevening, I got it. But I'm like, in the end, I'm like, my objective was never to come back to India. My objective was to work internationally for the foreseeable future. That the Chevening doesn't give me that. So there you go. I mean, I let go of a full ride to a business school and I
Yeah.
went with Rotman. So I feel like you need to be realistic in this situation as well. So kind of coming back to your point here with Oxford and ISB, am sure you had certain objectives in mind, which for which you felt that Oxford was a better choice than ISB. So again, it's
I
all
mean,
about.
it was like, but then again, I think I was way too naive in my thinking. You
Mhm.
know, I always knew that I wanted to come back to India, come what may, because I was going to join my family. I was
Right,
clear about that.
right.
Um, but I mean, this is just as an add-on. But like, if you put me today and like, if you put me today and give me the same options, I still might have picked Oxford, but I think I would have given ISB a lot more thought
Right.
than I gave it all the way back in 2014. That's the only difference.
Right. I guess you learn all these things once you kind of experience it as well. I mean, like there were so many aspects, so many factors that I didn't even put into the equation when I was applying, when I was kind of making this decision. I'm like, I only realized it later. I'm like, wait, I should have thought about this as well. Thinking about it, one example would be that I could have come and worked in Canada had I gone to Oxford as well. So I mean, like that option wasn't close to me, but I never thought about that. I never thought that way. So I feel like any candidate, kind of going through this video, I feel like you need to also learn from people's experiences. Don't discount them. I feel like they have certain valid points that you will only get to know if you've experienced it. So my advice here would be to kind of don't not discount certain things that people are telling you as well. People who've actually
I
experienced it.
agree. I totally agree. And it was the same. Like everyone was like, "Oh, Oxford. How can you think like ISB over Oxford? It's definitely Oxford." It's like, no, man. Thinking about it in retrospect. Anyway, let's move on. So you clearly stated that you had your goal that you wanted to live abroad, and quite specifically Canada as well. So it's been a couple of years that you finished business school, and so can you just talk us through your entire, and you had the opportunity of doing an internship as well.
Yep.
So can you talk us through the entire internship procedure and like process, not procedure, process, and then obviously the how you went about recruiting for full time in a place like Canada? What are the opportunities for, because Canada is a popular destination, education destination among Indians.
Mhm. Sure. So I think I'm gonna do this in chronological order.
Yeah,
Coming to the MBA and kind of having that first surprising experience of the kind of people who are around you. Everyone was just talking about consulting and finance, right?
correct.
And I would imagine that that would be the case at any leading business school. Like
Yeah,
any business school worth its salt would be focusing on finance and consulting. So it's very easy to get have that FOMO effect. For those who don't know the abbreviation, it's fear of missing out. Right? You want to kind of you always have this inclination of getting in the rat race with these people as well. Right? I think one thing
yeah,
you need to kind of remember during this time, and something that I regret I didn't learn early enough, was to remember why you came for the MBA. What were your goals? Right? What were your aspirations from the MBA? I'm not saying that you should stick to them. I think the MBA is, or stick only to them. I think the MBA is a place for you to explore certain opportunities, learn more from people's experiences, understand what other industries and other opportunities have to offer, but at the same time, not forget the goals that you had set for yourself when you came for the MBA. So
yeah,
kind of heading into the internship season per se, which was December, January of my first year. What
yeah,
I did was make sure that I went for as many info sessions that I could go to. I tried to network with as many people as I wanted. And I was very open-minded in this situation. I wasn't like, okay, product management is something I really want to go to, even though I had no inclination towards it, whatever. I was interested to know what project
yeah,
management was about, what a day-to-day would be for a product manager. But at the same time, this was just for me trying to kind of explore my options and see. I hope I'm not missing out on anything that I may not have known because I wasn't aware of those kind of jobs, right? So I think it's very important to network with an open mind, not specifically for the purpose of getting a job or trying to kind of get people to entice them to give you an opportunity should it come across, but just to learn, right? I think being in a business school is like a passport for 2 years or 1 year, accordingly, where you have the right to go and ask people about their job. You have a right to learn, right? Make full use of it.
Right.
So I think one advantage here in this situation was Rotman being in downtown Toronto. Everyone who was relevant in this sphere was just 10 minutes away, right? Because and that's a
Yeah.
huge advantage that you get from Rotman. So I made the most of it. I networked extensively. I went for info sessions just for the purpose of learning what these opportunities were about. One needs to be mindful about the fact that you can't go for everything. I think the biggest learning from the MBA, or like the biggest skill that you learned from the MBA, and probably Dave, you can vouch for this even more since your MBA was only 1 year. The MBA is all about trade-offs, right? You have a limited resource.
Yeah, you can't be everywhere.
Exactly,
You
right?
can't be
So
everywhere. You can't do everything.
you can't be everywhere, right? So you need to make sure that, okay, these are the list of things that you want to do. How do I prioritize them, right? And once you prioritize them, you make sure that you kind of go and learn as much as possible. So heading into December and the internship season, yeah, I did try for a couple of consultancy positions, just because, although I may preach the fact that, you don't want to be a part of the rat race, you still want to try and attempt a shot at one of, either financing or consulting if you're not looking at those sectors initially.
Yeah.
But what happened in Jan was a completely different experience. And probably the hardest part of my MBA, I started getting interview calls straight up from the first week of Jan, and they kept on coming, and they weren't stopping. And generally, my experience in India had been, if I got an interview with a certain company, I felt that was the biggest hurdle, right? However, in Canada, it's a different kettle of fish. I feel like the certain advantages you had in India when you were interviewing are not prevalent when you come to Canada, in a place where there's so much diversity, and so you're vying for positions where there are candidates, or prospective candidates with equal, if not better, skill sets and experiences than you are. So you need to be at the top of your game. And I felt that my background may not have been enough, or I wasn't the candidate they were looking for. So the internship, a few months of internship were hard for me because I was getting rejected every day. I was getting a rejection every day. I do remember I gave like 20 interviews, and I got rejected in all 20. So it has an effect on you that's not the nicest, I would say. So I think the biggest learning here is that it's a challenging time, the internship process. Some people are lucky and they get through in their first interview. I feel like they're missing out in the situation, because I felt like those few months built me for the next year during my MBA, and kind of post that as well. I think the ability to kind of brush yourself off and get up and go for the next one as if nothing happened, and to show the same kind of intent and excitement and energy for every interview moving forward, even though you know that you're getting rejected left, right, and center from different places.
Was the rejection harder or getting out on a duck harder? Let me ask you that.
I think I would equate them similarly. So I guess my cricketing experience came handy here, right? Like, I mean, cricket wasn't easy. I mean, felt like there were many rejections in my cricket career as well. So I felt like I had the experience of having rejections, right? It was easier for me to get up and move on, right? But a lot of my peers and friends at Rotman could not do that. Like, I mean, felt it was hard for them. Saying that of course there are resources at Rotman that you can use to get yourself out of that rut, but it was definitely a hard, hard few months during my Rotman career.
Yeah.
I also want to mention here that even if you do fail and not get certain positions that you really want, it may not be because of your ability to kind of portray yourself during the interviews, right? You may have had a brilliant interview, but they still won't take you, and there's a certain reason for that. When you look into the internships, right, they're looking at a candidate for a period of 4 months. They don't have time to train that candidate, so they may be looking for a candidate that's a bit more qualified for that particular role than when you look at candidates during full time. So it's an easier ride during full time than the internship, and I'm sure any other candidate would kind of vouch for the same thing as well. I think the biggest lesson here was that you eventually end up in the place you're supposed to, or you're meant to end up, where you can actually add true value to the organization you're going to be a part of for those 4 months in the summer. So I think that was the biggest learning during my internship period.
So where did you do your internship?
Right. So I was just going to come to that. So I interned at the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation. That's also where I am doing
Okay.
my I got a full-time role as well. Like I told you,
Okay.
my goal was to get into the sports industry, but having had those many conversations during the time I was networking, I realized that there are so many other opportunities out there that would that I could benefit from, or that could help me in the career I'm looking, or the career trajectory I'm looking for, that need not be a part of the traditional sports industry, right? So once I learned
Yeah.
that, I started looking at industries that were complementary to the sports industry, and one that came up was the gaming and entertainment sphere. But I think it was the experience of the MBA and the experience of meeting other people and learning what they do that made me realize that I don't have to kind of focus only on the sports industry. So when that opportunity came about, I used the same skill sets that I had from the sports industry, my background in the sports industry, and um, portrayed how I could be of value to the organization if they took me on board. And I think they saw that and they got me on board. And while I was interning with them, I tried to pivot my role in such a way that helped me move forward. So, look, just to give a brief one-liner, what OLG does, they are the provincial crown corporation that conducts and manages all lottery and gaming within the province of Ontario. So this not only includes lottery and casinos, but also includes sports betting. So my experience in sports, I felt could have helped them building their sports offering, right? Not only from a strategy point of view, but from partnerships with the traditional sports industry as well, where I could have
So
added
that's exactly where I was going to follow up with you. Can you give a brief description of what your role is right now or how it has progressed to what it is right now over the years?
Right. So, kind of jumping back to what I did before I came to the MBA, my focus in the sports industry was mainly on operations, sports marketing, talent management, right? It was far off from building strategy within the company, being the brains behind certain initiatives. And I felt like that's where I wanted to pivot to once I got out of my MBA. So when I interned at OLG, my focus was specifically on strategic research and partnerships, right? Which looked at an enterprise-wide point of view. However, I pivoted my role in such a way that I wanted to focus on strategic partnerships within OLG and sports betting strategy, because I felt like I would add the most value there. So all the projects that I did, I leaned towards that aspect. I made them believe that I would be of certain value in that aspect of their business. I, did the work. I did, I put in additional hours to do the research that would help them understand that, okay, I can be of value in this as and when they build their sports product, which they were in a certain transition in at the time. So I made them believe that I could help them with that, which is probably why they offered me a full-time position at the end of the summer, which I took with open arms, because I felt like I could actually add a lot of value here, and it could help me kind of progress my career the way I wanted it to, away from the traditional sports industry.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant insight that again, how are you combining your experience? You may not be, like you said, in the traditional sports management or talent management, and probably nowhere even close to cricket. You know, in this case, but you're still in the whole sports
Yep.
arena, so as to say, sports industry. And I think gaming and entertainment is just blowing up everywhere.
Especially with the advent of esports, I think that's another area that is going to blow up pretty soon. Yeah.
Correct. So, Adil, I think if you could shed some light on uh, how Canada is a very Indian friendly, so as to speak, and it's relatively easier to get a PR in Canada over very many other countries. And obviously, right now, we are facing a very abnormal scenario with COVID paralyzing not Canada or India or UK or America. It's a world paralysis right now. So, can you just shed some light on how Canada, working in Canada is, and getting recruited in Canada, easy, hard, I don't know, however you may put it, or
Right.
friendly, unfriendly, let me put it the other way.
So like I said, that had the decision to move to Canada. One of the reasons why I did so was basically this reason, where like the immigration laws are favorable to a student, and it's probably one of the best ways to enter the country if you're looking at staying here for the long run, as compared to just going straight in with the PR. So the one good thing about studying in Canada is that if you're doing a 2-year degree, as if, the one that you would do at Rotman, you get a 3-year, work visa post your MBA or post a 2-year masters, right? So that's a huge advantage for a lot of people who are still considering whether they want to make Canada their, future place of residence. At the same time, it doesn't take a lot of effort to get a PR as long as you have the right skill set and the right experience behind you.
Okay.
There is a process called the express entry visa for permanent residents, which requires you to hit a certain score, post which they give you an invitation to apply for a PR. Many people who are looking at getting an MBA would be close to achieving that target. I mean, hey, with my lack of corporate experience, if I hit the mark, I'm sure people with 4 to 5 years of corporate experience would have enough points to apply for the PR. So while you're kind of studying, at Rotman or in Canada, but in general, you can apply for the PR, and it kind of helps you build your career post that. So if you're looking at Canada for or at least looking internationally for long-term prospects, Canada would be an ideal choice as compared to, let's say, your other regular spots like the States or the UK.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? So that definitely helps. Canada in general for Indians, I feel like yes, there's a lot of people from India in Canada, so it does feel very similar to life if you were back in India. But the reason why you want to come here is to experience diversity. Like Toronto especially is a multicultural, multi-diverse city. I think there's a huge advantage to being in a city like this, where you get perspectives from people from different parts of the world. So you want to kind of get the most out of that. So even though, yes, there would be a lot of Indians and you'd feel at home in a place like this, I think the biggest asset here is having that diversity around you, which you will not get in many cities, right? I think one thing that I wanted to kind of make sure when I was choosing my business school was to go to a diverse city, right? So it could have been New York, it could have been Toronto, right? Saying that, I do want to touch upon the kind of resources that Rotman gave me over and above that, which is why I kind of made Canada or Toronto my preferred destination. Like there were certain things that Rotman offered that also made my decision easier. So one thing that Rotman kind of focuses on is making a holistic candidate. It's not just about the hard skills, but it's equally important, if not more, to develop the soft skills for a future leader or a future manager that's coming out from the MBA. So certain things from Rotman that really helped me or really helped me make my decision were the emphasis on soft skills around self-development, building my leadership skills and building my communication skills, right? So Rotman has something called Self-Development Lab. It's a a small siloed body within Rotman that works with students to focus on their self-development. It's co-led by a Professor Maya Dijik, who I think is fantastic in the work she does. I think when Rotman has to promote themselves, when they're kind of reaching out to prospective candidates, they ask Maya to take a open session, and I think she's brought in so many candidates single-handedly. It's not funny, and there's a reason behind it. I mean, I think the work she does with the students at Rotman is really helps them in the long run, kind of moving forward. So I felt like if a business school focuses on the self development aspect for an MBA student, that would be a great place to go, right?
Okay.
Other than that, there are certain other niche areas that Rotman focuses on that a lot of students may be interested in. So although I didn't focus my background in this area or my path in these areas, but behavioral economics and design thinking were two major aspects that Rotman really focuses on. So they are, let's say, sciences, that kind of are going to shape the future in the corporate world. And I feel that gaining some perspective, if not all, within these areas of work would be great for prospective students moving forward. So I felt like these were certain things as well that helped me choose Rotman. And
but I think that's definitely a useful insight for someone who's probably considering and basically an MBA aspirant. But I want you to dive, I'd like you to dive a little deeper apart from the academic side of it. I'm sure you were involved on the extracurricular side of it, like sport or like some clubs or so can you shed some light on the availabilities of these extracurriculars at Rotman?
Right. So, like any other academic institution, there are many avenues that you can kind of spend your time and invest in, be it sports or otherwise, extracurricular otherwise. So, your time at Rotman, you can kind of ensure that you're busy
all the time,
every second of your time. And I guess that's the same in all business schools. Certain things that I feel are very good for you for your own development were being an active participant in the club atmosphere, the club ecosystem at Rotman. There are a bunch of clubs in different avenues, not only academically focused, but also on skill building as well as social initiatives. In the first year, you are generally a member of a club with probably a role that makes you a representative for a certain club. But in the second year specifically, you get into the executive of these clubs. You run these clubs yourself, right? I think that's a huge learning for you, because which you will not get in the corporate world at all, because if you are in a position of leading a certain club, you're leading your peers going forward. It's not a situation where you're in a superiority position where you have certain kind of powers that authority, the authoritative power that you would have if you're in a position of seniority. This is a situation where you're leading your peers, right? It's a different kind of leadership. It's a leadership that you're not going to get for a while. So for me, that was a big pull as well. I was a part of 3 executive teams in my second year, so it was very busy. I was leading the negotiation club, and I was a vice president in the Sports Business Association and the Women in Management Association. So I think I gained a lot of experience through being actively involved in the club ecosystem. So I think that's one place that people can really put a lot of focus on while they're at Rotman. From a sports aspect, of course, because I can't keep sports away, there are a lot of intra-university tournaments that take place, and if you are a part of the team for Rotman, you're representing Rotman going forward. And the sports, they have a league for every sport, including cricket. Right. So I focused a lot on soccer. The reason being is that I play cricket enough in my life. I wanted to kind of experience other sports as well. And even there, it's a different experience, because usually people play a sport just to chill out, just to kind of take a break from the hectic life at Rotman. But even here, your management skills had to come into play, right? You needed to kind of showcase that you were a leader in certain situations. You needed to be very mindful of the way you interact and behave with your team, very similar to how you would have to do that in a corporate sphere as well. So I feel like the MBA experience never stopped, whatever you did. Right?
The management experience, let's put it that.
Never stops, right? And these 2 years, it's all about that. Right? And I think the best way to get the most out of those 2 years is to just kind of immerse yourself in these kind of initiatives and different perspectives and different experiences and kind of gain the most out of it.
Fair enough. I think that's been I think all that you said has pretty much given a fairly holistic view. So I'm going to wrap up with one last question, which is probably my favorite question to ask. Whoever I'm interviewing. So it's nothing related to classes, nothing related to recruitment. We had enough of all that. What would be your three most important takeaways from your 2-year experience?
Right. Good question. I think my first one's gonna be something that I have mentioned before. But so I'll start off with that. I think it's very important to remember throughout your 2 years why you came for the MBA. What was your objective?
Yeah.
It's so easy because it's such a competitive environment. It's so easy to get sidetracked and try and achieve things that maybe more lucrative in general. I mean, like there are a lot of people who want to go into finance consulting because it's lucrative. But the important aspect is you're doing this for a certain reason. And I think you need to kind of focus on that. I'm not saying that you shouldn't explore other avenues, but always keep that in mind.
Sure.
Second thing is don't be narrow-minded, right? You want to make sure you've invested 2 years of your life in this experience. This will probably be one of the last times where you get a chance to look at different avenues to understand who you are, what you want to do in life, right? You may have come with a certain goal in mind, but it doesn't mean that you can't look at what other opportunities are out there. You never know when something may strike a chord and you may find a different career path that you're even more interested in than the one you started with. So always have a broad perspective when you're with the MBA. Experience things, learn from people. Always have that learning curve, right? You want to make the most of the 2 years that you're there. And the third, I have to think about this one because I feel like I have many learnings I would like to share, but I just want to kind of ensure that the third one's equally important as well. I would say don't focus only on the hard skills. I would say I think when you want to come out of the MBA, you want to ensure that you are the best version of yourself moving into the corporate world or wherever you want to go, right? Post your MBA, you want to ensure that you are different and an improved version of yourself before you came to the MBA.
Yeah. I think improved version of yourself would be I think a better phrase to say than the best version of yourself, because you always want to improve. I think a significantly improved version of yourself would be more appropriate, I think, in this
I completely agree. So the thing is that if I said your best version of yourself, that just means that you're never going to kind of improve post that. So
improve.
That's not the right way of looking at it. So yes, definitely an improved version of yourself, so that you can kind of ensure that you are the most valuable entity kind of moving forward to the organization you're going to be a part of in the future, or the organizations you're going to be a part of in the future. So try and make sure that you gain as much as possible. One thing that kind of reiterate this fact is that when you go and look at the courses that you're choosing, you want to make sure that you're not focused only on one specific stream, right? Now, they all talk about, I majored in this particular stream, and that's important to a certain aspect. But like, so for example, I knew I wanted to move into strategy, so I made sure that I did the courses or the credits I needed for strategy to get that tag. But after that, I was very open in the courses that I chose. I wanted to do a bit of everything so that I got the most out of my MBA experience, even though it meant taking a hit on my GPA, because the GPA is not everything during MBA. It's not. No one remembers GPA after a year. Not even.
You don't remember it. Forget everyone.
No one asks. Like many people don't ask unless you're going like into investment banking or like consulting with the big three. No one's gonna ask you for your GPA. So it's better that you rather focus on developing yourself on a more holistic level than focus on specific things. So for me, it was very important to do courses such as negotiating.
I totally agree, because I had this. We didn't have to pick a specialization per se, but guys who wanted to go into finance took like the more of private equity, venture capital, corporate finance kind of classes. I mean, I took corporate finance as well, but um, I think it allowed me to take a few strategy classes. It allowed me to take a few marketing classes. Whatever I thought would be my interest, because I totally agree that this is probably your last chance to learn
Yeah.
at such a competitive level.
Yeah, and so I completely agree with that's probably the best way of looking at it. Obviously, people have different objectives, and they're solely focused on a certain area, and that's a good way of looking at things as well. So, for example, if someone wants to get into iBanking, they know these are the courses that are required for iBanking, and they have a certain path in mind, which is not it's fine. It all depends on
Yeah.
what your end goal is. But if you are coming here with a more general standpoint where you want to be as open with the opportunities as possible, you want to make the most of the experience by taking different courses, try and understand different things. Right? One other aspect that I do want to mention here is that, and something I learned very recently as well, the courses with the hard skills, right? Like the ones where there's accounting and stuff like that, you can get that from anywhere,
Yeah.
right? You can get that from online courses that are taking place right now because of the current situation that we're in. Obviously, Rotman, with its focus on research, faculty research, will keep on giving you the best and the most relatable knowledge within that subject, which is obviously a plus for Rotman. I mean, it's one of the best in the world. It's equal to Harvard in the kind of faculty research it does. But saying that, it's so important to look at courses that are focused on building your skill set from a soft skill point of view. So I think some of the courses that really helped me, and I can see them being used from day one in my job, stuff like negotiations,
Yeah.
communication strategy, right? Like social innovation, leadership development. These are the kind of
Yeah.
courses that I feel like a lot of people sidestep because they feel like it's not going to add value to them from an MBA
Correct.
perspective. But I feel like they couldn't be more wrong in this situation because those are the courses that are actually helping me from day one for my job, right?
I agree. I agree. No, no, and it also, I think it kind of breaks the monotony. The soft skills courses, they are not the hardcore where you require full concentration, but subconsciously you pick up so many things from those courses. I sometimes feel that subconsciously you pick up more from those courses than the hard skill courses.
I completely agree, and I think a reason for that is because of, like you mentioned, the diverse experiences that are from people that are around you. I think that when you have certain discussion-based classes, you gain
Yeah.
so much on a subconscious level because of the experiences people are sharing with you, and that's what takes place during these kind of courses. So I don't think people should disregard that when they're thinking about the kind of courses that they're going to do when they pursue the MBA.
Great. So I think that was very, very, very insightful. I think it was a very candid conversation, a very insightful conversation, and I think it was a very genuine, uh, honest opinion that you have shared with us of your experience. So I think that's about it from my end. Anything else that you would like to add that we've not been able to touch upon that you think it's important to,
So yeah, for sure. Like from a Rotman perspective, since I can add a bit more there. I think a question that a lot of people will have, especially from the conversations I've had from prospective students who are looking at Rotman, is what are they looking for from an applicant, right? And I think that's something that I feel like I should share here because it would be
yeah,
beneficial for students
please.
applying to Rotman. Everyone thinks that, as you mentioned, the GMAT is an important aspect of the application. It's not in the case of Rotman. And Rotman looks at every aspect of the application. And I know that every business school says, oh, we look at the whole picture and stuff like that. But it's actually true at Rotman. Again, I can vouch for this from my own experience. I mean, like I applied to a couple of business schools in America. I could not even manage an interview because my GMAT score wasn't the best, right?
Yeah.
But Rotman overlooked that, and they looked at the holistic picture, right? For Rotman, it's all about what you can bring to the community, what you can bring to your peers, and how you can add value to their experience, their MBA
Yeah.
experience. So it's so important to kind of for students think about not only what they've their experiences from a corporate or an academic standpoint, but what else they bring to the table, right? What are the kind of experiences they've had that could actually add value to their cohort or their peers, right? So there's something called a spike factor that Rotman really looks at, right? And their essay question, whenever they put it across to prospective candidates, is not about, oh, tell us about a great experience in your life and those behavioral questions. They ask you to talk about your spike factors, right? And your spike factors could be something like talking about having a career in sports, talking about climbing a mountain, talking about starting your own company, talking about a failed initiative that you had. It's basically about talking about those experiences and what you gained out of them that could help the Rotman community. I think that's something that they need to focus on over and above anything else. I mean, if you're only about 770s in your GMAT and perfect GPA scores in your undergrad,
really academically inclined. I mean, you need to have
a whole holistic view, and I feel like Oxford was also the same in its thought process as well. Where they saw the entire picture. So I feel like people, when they try and apply to Rotman, they need to focus not only on their academic achievements but also in what else they've done in life that could add value to the Rotman.
No, what you're saying is very right about Oxford as well. Like, contrary to the university, which is very academic and score or grade oriented. The business school is not like that. And I, just like you, I had a decent GMAT score, but I was in the lower range. But yeah, building that entire profile, like looking at the whole box as one whole, rather than just focusing on academia as the first criterion to eliminate. And then I think Oxford is a little, and I think that's how business schools should be. It should be the entire package rather than just a few check boxes to. So yeah, I think that was the last part was definitely a very valid and helpful helpful piece of information, at least for aspirants who are looking at Rotman and maybe even Oxford. But I think so. So yeah, thanks a lot, Adil. Thanks a lot for taking this 1 hour out for us, and good luck to you. And we'll definitely be in touch.
Looking forward to it.
And for the time being, stay home, stay safe, stay healthy.
You as well. And hopefully we can all get through this stronger and come back in a positive manner.
I hope so. Okay, thanks a lot, Adil.
Thank you. All right, have a great Sunday. Bye.
Have a good day. Bye.